Alright, hopefully this will be of some help. This is now attempt number 3. The first one I started a mission and was kind of going long. Attempt 2 was fine, but except I didn't have my voice recording on, so here we go. Alright, so we're going to start with the pilots. You'll note that pretty much all of them have Bulwark. That's okay, he's the only one who doesn't. So, Bulwark helps with damage reduction if you're in cover or if you take the guarded or if you have both going. Um, that's just pretty handy in general. Most maps give you some means of cover. Um, a lot of my pilots, I also take sturdiness, sure-footing, sorry, because it helps you, as long as all you did was walk, you take less stability damage, so you're less likely to fall. Um, and no matter what mode of movement you use, you gain an extra evasion pip, so that can't hurt. Wow, hurt. Jeez. Anyway, I like to have at least, generally no more than 2, but I like to have 2 pilots that have the sensor lock ability, because that lets you lock targets that are not in your line of sight, and then lets people, mechs, especially the ones with, especially and primarily the ones with LRMs, to fire on them. You see, I've got in this kit. Well, I'll show you here. He's got the guts second tier, I guess you would call it, ability, coolant vent. Because honestly, I most of the time multi-target's not going to be of help. Because you really want to focus your targets, get them off the field as quickly as possible. Um, there is the piloting one is where you can fire and then move, and that can be helpful. Um, but there's going to be times where you're trying to get stuff off the field and you're building up that heat, and this can help in a pinch. Um, so that's kind of how I tend to build my pilots. Um, piloting and guts. I mean, yeah, obviously gunnery is important if you want to be able to hit, but both piloting and guts help with keeping your pilot alive, helping with maybe being a little less easy to hit in their mechs. So, try and build them somewhat equally, is at least how I do it. Now, in the mech bay, my current squad, I've got that being worked on. So, I'll show you the Wolverine. It's a 55 tonner, so that's the highest a medium mech can be. And if you mouse over its movement, you see its maximum move is 140 meters. Well, not at a sprint, but that's neither here nor there. So that is, generally speaking, most of the mechs you're going to find that are 55 tons are going to have either that movement or a little bit less. So, for example, now it's 5 tons less, but the Hunchback's movement, that's not going to show me. Alright, go with the Vindicator because is 120 meters. Now, it does get jump, which helps with getting over terrain. The Wolverine also has that. I find jump to be very handy. The Phoenix Hawk is stupid on jump. It's actually also has a very high ground movement. Now, because of how the designs work based on the tabletop, the more move, the bigger your engine, which means it takes up more tonnage, so it doesn't leave as much for weapons and such. So, with the Phoenix Hawk, it's got, for energy weapons, it's got the large laser for long-ish range, 450 meters, and then the two mediums for closer in. The machine guns are for real close range, and they'll, since they're considered support weapons, they'll also fire if you perform a melee attack. You note the ammo is in the head. That's one of the best places to store it if you can, just because, you know, if you're taking damage to the head, you're in a bad spot already, and it's not as likely to be hit. And if you happen to take a hit in the ammo here, yeah, it's going to kill your pilot, unfortunately. But it's just going to blow the head off. The rest of the mech should be, you know, at whatever condition it was. This is pretty fast. Let's go back to Wolverine Autocannon 5. It's the second longest range of the autocannons, after only the AC2. And the only time I use AC2s is when you get to a blackjack as default. You've got two of them, so it kind of compensates for their unimpressive damage. But they do have really good range. AC5 and the PPC have the same range, 540 meters, 540 meters. But you see that its tonnage is 8, but only 2. I mean, you're not really hurting for critical slots, so it's. I'm not even. I can point out the slot comparison. It's mainly when you get to your heavy and assault mechs where you have enough tonnage where critical slots become an issue. So it's 8 tons and the heat is 8, whereas your PPC is 7 tons, heat is 35. So obviously that builds up a significant amount of heat. Now the PPC doesn't have ammo, don't gotta worry about it, but they both have the same minimum range. But this one, it has the AC for the long range, and then it has a medium laser and 2 SRM4 racks for closer in. Now the default is a single SRM6 rack. This gives you a little bit more flexibility as far as whether you fire 1 or 2. If you do continually fire both, you would run out of ammo quicker than with a single SRM6, but generally speaking, that's not going to be as big of a deal. You've got, I think it's roughly 12 rounds if you firing both. With an SRM6, I think it's 15 rounds, so it's not that significant a difference. This gives you, it's not an all or nothing with an SRM6, and gives you more missiles to spread around. These are what they call crit seekers, because let's say on your enemy, both the side torsos and a leg are exposed as far as armor. So if you hit with 6 total missiles, that's 6 chances to hit any of those 3 locations and potentially cause a critical. It's not good for concentrated damage like a cannon or a PPC or a large laser, but it's kind of a matter of knowing when to fire it. I mean, damage is damage, but it's especially useful to fire those if there's exposed locations. Let's see. The Vindicator. So it typically has a PPC and an LRM5. I find LRM5s to be pretty much worthless. I mean, if you got it, use it. But it's not something I keep on a mech for any length of time. Basically, as soon as I can replace it, I will. So if you can't if you don't have room for ammo in the head, put it in a leg. Legs are less, tend to have a decent amount of armor. They're not as likely to get hit unless you're getting kicked, and that's a bad thing. But this has the large and 2 mediums again as far as sustainable firepower. It's got an LRM-10 rack for shooting over stuff or for longer range than the large laser. Again, the jump jets for terrain mobility. Let me get the Hunchback done and the Panther. All right, good. So, the Hunchback, you'll see it's got an AC-10 instead of AC-20. better range, better ammo durability. Again, ammo in the legs. And this one, unfortunately, the only you could count the small laser, but it's very short. That's a very close range. So if either this weapon gets taken out or you run out of ammo, you're left with two medium lasers. So, but it's up. It's definitely some better armor than the stock. That's something I tend to do. I don't necessarily always max it out, but this is pretty close to it. And the nice thing about having the small laser is if you do get close enough to punch, well, to melee something, because it doesn't really specify whether you're punching or kicking, but anyway, if you get close enough to melee, it'll also fire the small laser for a little bit extra damage, potentially. Panther is pretty solid light mech, but slow. You see, it's got the same movement profile basically as the Hunchback, 120 meters. But it's got a decent punch for a light. It's got, in this case, normally a PPC, but I downgraded that to a large laser, and I upgraded the SM4 to an SRM6. Again, ammo in the leg. I could try and tweak a little bit, but I'm changing this to an SRM4. Not going to get a whole lot of extra armor, really. And you don't have any mounts for support weapons, so you're not going to. You can't do that, say, like a half ton of armor and a small laser. Notice I tend to try and pack things around each other, because if you only have one thing in an item, one item in a location, and it takes a critical hit, guess what's getting hit? And you had mentioned your fire starter. So again, this thing has the same basic movement profile as the Phoenix Hawk. So it's pretty light and nimble. Not the most robust, as I'm sure you've noticed. Normally this has the two flamers in the middle and the center torso. I swapped them out for small lasers because adding heat to a mech can sometimes help, but I just as soon have the damage. So this had just for, medium lasers aren't truly ranged, but you have 3 medium lasers to harass your targets with. So I'm kind of hoping that helps you understand my loadout philosophy. I guess I didn't really specify. I like to have one decent range weapon in most cases, so that as you're either approaching or maybe, not that you really circle strafe in this, but if you're kind of trying to keep to a distance, you have that to use. Now, the fire starter is definitely an up close in your face mech, or it's a harasser. So you come in, melee, fire medium lasers, and then jump out. Mechs like the fire starter and the Phoenix Hawk, they're very nimble, not the most robust. So it makes sense to hit and run with them, or hit and fade, if possible. If you try and do a slug with an equal tonnage mech, a slug out with an equal tonnage mech, it's probably not going to do too well. So again, I hope this helps you. Any questions or anything I can clarify, I would be more than happy to. So, all right.